Because you see how the NUJ rise to the occasion. And we are still in court on that. That's all part of the freedom. Again, we also have Olomola Fed, a Badagry Grace journalist, who was also assaulted allegedly by agents of the Nigeria Customs Service. The NUJ in Lagos is also in court with that. And each time we mobilize our members, through the chairman of NUJ, we mobilize our members to go there and report it. And so it's already there in the public domain. That's all part of that freedom. But again, I always like to tell to our colleagues that we should know that where our freedom, stops, that's why the freedom of others, also starts. The aggressiveness, the kinds of the sensationalism, or some of the things that will bring into certain issues at times, I show that because that's what I keep saying, do the people really understand what it takes to practice this profession? And in other climes, what happens? How do you track a story? What do you do next? And that's to do with even the capacity of our own, of a journalist himself or herself. Did you also believe in yourself? What are the do's and what are the tips you need to know as a journalist? And that's why IPC came up with a survey of some of these impunities. And of course, what are the things a journalist needs to do to know about himself, how he's going to protect himself first? And that's why you have a platform, a digital platform, to also track your own movements. On your phone, people should know where you're going, where you are at a point in time. So if there is a crisis, you could also know, it could be triggered off, and then people get to know what to do. So journalists themselves need to know some of these things. And of course, you also have a situation whereby some journalists does not even know that he needs to secure his own life in terms of having an insurance policy, a personal insurance policy. And of course, the institution has a policy, has an insurance policy, and UJ has insurance policy. But how many of our colleagues, assigned to that, take advantage of that? However, portrait is 6,700 per annum. And these are the money you go to a joint that you spend,
drinking beer.
No, drinking beer, I know that's part of our stock and trade. We just enjoy ourselves when we have the money.
Why not?
So why not investing that money in a life insurance scheme? So because an institution has provided that avenue for you, and NUJ has done that well. So what about you now also keying in? So basically again, that you also need to find out, as journalists, where you work, did you also take time to understand the earth environment very well? When do you need to move out of that place so that you're not caught in the web? And if there are crises, for example, reporting crisis, for example, is a very important aspect of journalism. Reporting. How do people know? Where do you need to go? Do you want to show that, yes, I'm that journalist, the fearless journalist, so I need to do that, to do that? There's also a point of caution. Where do I need to go? Where do I not to go? What do I need to wear where I'm going? So some of these are salient issues that has to do with the protection of journalists himself, as that you just need to know. These are the basics that I think, as someone who signed up to be a journalist, understand the risks and also understands the opportunities that are there, so that you are not going to come in the web.
Mr. Nkanga, let me bring you in now, if I may. You are the West Africa representative of the Committee for the Protection of Journalists. Now, compared to our neighbors, how are we doing? Are we the worst in the scheme of things?
I can't hear you, but okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do I speak out? I can't hear anything.
My question was, since you're the
Yes,
West Africa representative, how badly or how well are we doing? Where do we place in the scheme of things in West Africa?
In West Africa, categorically, I'll take it from the ECOWAS belt, which is made up of 15 countries. I would say that Nigeria is still a shining light that should not fade. But when I say this with the understanding that obviously Nigeria should be the shining light. We are the big brother of West Africa. So we have an exemplary role and a standard that we should uphold. The worst of all the countries within West Africa when it comes to impunity and when it comes to repression of not just journalists but of citizens is the Gambia. The Gambia is made of just a population of about 2 million. But the Gambia is like that black sheep of the family, which unless the rest of the family stand up and say enough is enough of your tantrums and your insolence, the black sheep will keep staining the rest of the family. And I'm referring to particularly the Gambia because the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice has actually rendered 3 unprecedented judgments against the Gambia in the murder of assassination of a journalist, Haidara. The ECOWAS court awarded damages and ruled that, in fact, the Gambia failed to even investigate properly this assassination. The ECOWAS court also ruled on the judgment of torture of another journalist, Musa Sedikan, by state actors involved, and the ECOWAS also ruled on the enforced disappearance of a journalist who has been missing still today. And this is 10 years. But the Gambia has refused to comply with these judgments. And the rest of the 14 other countries within ECOWAS, including Nigeria now, which goes back to your question, is keeping silent. You can't keep silent and expect that the judiciary, which we are now trying to fight about today in Nigeria, is the same judiciary that is supposed to give hope to the community of citizens that makes up this ECOWAS region. We talk about an ECOWAS of people, no more an ECOWAS of states, regional integration. And where do you go to when you want to seek justice? Is it not still the court? And the court will now give 3 judgments and 1 child. The Gambia will refuse. And then Nigeria is looking and not doing anything.
We'll still come back and talk more about journalists in other West African countries and our neighbors, but we'll just go on this quick break, and Sunrise will be back in a moment. Mr. Kanga, in closing now, what would you say the Nigerian journalists should do, to ensure his or her safety?
I would like to say that what Nigerian journalists should do is to be able to ensure that they are safe in the carrying out of their duties is to stand by the truth.
All right.
The truth will set everyone free.
Okay.
I just need to say this, that the most emblematic case that even you mentioned is the case of Yomi Olomofe, who, against all odds, we talked about the death of Dele Giwa. This is a journalist right now who is still alive and has identified the people who attempted to kill him a year ago. And the highest authorities of this government know about this assassination attempt by people who have been identified as smugglers of arms into this country. Only last 2 months, in August, the UN said that out of 500 million arms in Nigeria, 350 million are in Nigeria out of 500 million in West Africa. Olomofe's case unravels those people who are bringing his arms because he was investigating alleged complicity of customs in smuggling arms. As a result of that, he was assaulted to the point of coma, almost died in broad daylight. And the customs PRO, Wale Adeniyi, knows about this.
Okay.
The hierarchy of the presidency, the police, they are aware of this. But they will not bring the people that Olomofe has identified by name, by face, by location to justice, because if they do, they will not ruffle feathers within people in the last government and this current government. But as a result of this inaction by the government, people are dying every day from these arms that have been brought into this country. And we have an opportunity of unraveling those people bringing those arms. So if this government is really serious about fighting corruption, this is one way.
Thank you. Quickly, in very few words, but I would like to quickly add this. Festus Akinboyewa says on Twitter that part of the problem is that some journalists are corrupt and allow themselves to be used by politicians.
Absolutely. I said that. I talked about complicity on the part of some of our colleagues.
Where do we go from there?
One thing we should know, the state should recognize that we are working in public interest. Society also knows we are working in public interest. And where we find a situation where we are working against the public interest, I think journalists should be called to question. So, for you want to be a journalist, please ask yourself, am I cut out for this job? For me, 25 years down the lane, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled about the profession. So I think it's extremely important.
All right, Mr.
Now, the journalist does not exist outside of the society in which he operates. And so some of the issues that you are bringing up, whether it's issue of corruption and or stuff like that, they are also a reflection of the larger society. But then, it's not a correct thing to say that journalists are corrupt. Yes, there are one or two subject to a lot of influence, but you will give it to Nigerian journalists that despite the very difficult environment in which he has to operate, I think by and large, the Nigerian journalist has acquitted himself very credibly, and I think it deserves to be celebrated rather than put down.
Thank you so much for coming on this morning. We've been having a chat with a panel of journalists and of course people who protect journalists, committee of for the protection of journalists, Mr. Peter Nkanga. Thank you so much for joining us from our Abuja studios, and of course Mr. Sonya Oni, member of the editorial board of the nation's newspapers, and Mr. Kozem Akinreti, the Assistant Director, News Voice of Nigeria. Thank you all for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So Sunrise will take a break and we'll be back with much more.
Marriage record, face bond everything, Danny Apala, Obere Medene, Amo Isoko. Why you were there, that's the way I sorrow. If you know better about that, make you go for it. You're gonna come today, no be tomorrow. After the